Okay. Okay, so this is continuing chapter 1, Jerusalem Countdown, John Hagee. Okay. This is in the section, Consider the Size of the Islamic Fascist Army. Okay, Walid Shubat, trained from his youth to become a PLO terrorist and suicide bomber who converted to Christianity in his 20s, was asked the following question on the John Hagee Ministries national and worldwide telecasts. What percentage of Islamics are willing to wage jihad against America and Israel? Walid Shubat, we can say over 73% of the Arab world supports the jihad ideology. For many years, Islamic leaders have been saying 15%. That's not accurate. It's almost over 73%. Okay, so that's what Walid Shubat said. Okay. Let's look at the bright side and say it's only 15% of 1.3 billion people. That means the Islamic army consists of 200 million who are willing to die killing Americans and Jews. Let's suppose that Walid Shubat is absolutely accurate in stating that 73% of 1.3 billion Islamics are willing to die bringing down Western civilization. That's almost 1 billion people, more than 3 times the present population of the United States. This is a religious army unlike anything the Western world has seen since the dawn of civilization. They intend to roll back the clock of history to the 7th century. Could we be entering a new dark ages? Breaking covenants and peace treaties. On our national and international telecasts, I questioned Walid Shubat about whether lying is acceptable in Islam for the purpose of advancing the Islamic faith. Shubat says, yes, lying is acceptable to make peace between husband and wife, and another occasion in a jihad. Pastor, you can lie to the husband and you can lie to the wife and say he loves you, she loves you, so that you can get along. This is lying in the minor element, but lying is the major element in jihad. Covenant breaking is the major issue in Islam. You don't want to break covenant because Muhammad, the prophet of Islam, in the Hudaybiyah Hudaybiyya treaty with Quraysh broke the covenant. Quraysh. He was critiqued by the Muslim followers, and he said, there is no covenant with unbelievers. In fact, Pastor Hagee, when I confronted my father as I was preparing to leave home, it was the last words I had with my father. I purchased land from our father, and I had the bill of sale. And as I left, I asked my father, saying, Father, I'm not interested in the inheritance. I'm not interested in your blessings. I'm simply interested in the bill of sale that we have. He said, Son, you know in Islam, we do not have to honor agreements with unbelievers. So it doesn't matter what covenant you sign. They don't have to honor the covenant. So what's the use of having all these peace treaties? All Christians must look at the word Hudna. 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 Hudna is Islam. In Islam is the process of establishing covenant or a peace treaty with an enemy. And it's done solely for two purposes. One is to gain concessions, as the Palestinians did, and the other is to regain strength. This is why Hezbollah accepts Hudna with Israel. It's not the Oslo Peace Accord, as we think. It's the Oslo Hudna Accord in the mind of all Islamics. Gentiles and Jews look at the Oslo Peace Accord and believe it is a valid document, but in the Middle East, we call it the Oslo Hudna Accord, and we never intend to keep the document. Pastor Hagee says, that's very interesting. That means any peace treaty they sign, they're not obligated to keep it. Shabbat says, not at all. The treaty is just an absolute waste of time to pursue it. If they sign it, they simply are not going to honor it. And anybody who believes it is becoming deceived, just like Chamberlain of England. Islamic teachings concerning Christians. Pastor Hagee says, what are the teachings of Islam concerning the Christian people? Shabbat. Well, Islam is very clear. This is what we see the Islamic movement doing now. This is the war against the Saturday people first and the Sunday people next. Islam solely has one purpose and one purpose alone as a religion. It came to correct the Jews and to correct the Christians, to correct the Judeo-Christian world that God is not our Father. God is not a father. Jesus is not a son of God because God has no son. God is not the Holy Spirit, and Jesus was never crucified. Pastor Hagee says, so in essence, Islam came to correct the Christians, and by the power of the sword, if you have to. Shabbat says, jihad comes in several stages. By the pen, by finances, and by the sword as well. So Islam came to establish jihad, and if you look at every single Muslim demonstration, the war is with the Christian world. They don't differentiate between Presbyterian, Pentecostal, or Catholic. They are all the Christian world. That's how they view America. Terrorist training. Pastor Hagee says, what about the training you received as a child and teenager, which started you down the road to becoming a terrorist? Shabbat says, well, Americans must understand that anti-Semitism starts like milk you feed to a baby. When I was 6 years old, going to kindergarten, just before the 6-day war erupted, we were singing a song. Sings song in foreign language. I'm saying this in Arabic, which means Arabs are beloved and Jews are dogs. I continued my education by entering an Anglican Lutheran school, 3rd and 4th grade, which was supposedly a Christian school. There the Bible was taught to us as Moses was a Palestinian revolutionist. Jesus was a Palestinian revolutionist. In fact, prominent figures, all Christians, Palestinian prominent figures, say that the biblical characters were all Palestinian revolutionists. Going to the government schools, things took on a much different nature. Now we were learning the Quran. Now we were learning the Hadith. Terrorism was being taught as a part of the religion. I was in high school, about 14, 15, or 16, those ages, and we memorized most of the Quran. Our educators were graduates of Al-Azhar University. Most Americans don't know what that really entails. Al-Azhar University is the #1 university that serves all of the Sunni Muslim world with graduates and scholars. All of these graduates, almost all of them, teach the jihadist movement, and the Islamic Brotherhood coming out of Egypt was very influential in our area. Jihadiyya will teach us martyrdom, that in order to establish salvation, we must die ourselves in order to go to heaven, and not just to receive 70 virgins. There's 72 rooms with 72 beds, and on each bed or each sheet, 72 virgins. In fact, we memorized it. Do not think that the one who die in jihad in the cause of Allah are dead, but are alive with Allah, receiving His blessings. And we learned also the Islamic Hadith. The Islamic Hadith regarding jihad. There's about 100 hadiths talking about jihad. And it talks about eschatology. Or eschatology. Eschatology. Islam is filled with eschatology regarding the end of days. And what Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam, said was very clear, speaking in Arabic, which means in English, the day of judgment shall not come to pass until the tribes of Islam defeat the tribes of Israel in Jerusalem and the surrounding nations. The trees will cry out, and the stones will cry out, "Here is a Jew hiding behind me. Come, O Muslim. Come, O Allah. Come and kill him." So terrorism was inculcated in the religious perspective, in social perspective. In the graffiti all around the walls, you would find a square meter in the Palestinian areas that didn't have graffiti. And what kind of graffiti are you talking about, Pastor? Things like, "We knock on the gates of heaven with the skulls of Jews. So in order to enter paradise, you must kill Jews. You must die as a shaheed or a martyr." That was part of the entire social structure. Pastor Hagee says, were you as a child taught that Jews were descendants from apes and monkeys? Shabbat says, even going to the local zoo, you would see monkeys, and the teacher would say, "These are the descendants of the Jews." We were given the Quranic verse regarding this, which means we have converted these Sabbath breakers, the Jews, to becoming detestable monkeys. Then you see all the Palestinian clergies saying these things. It was very parallel to what you saw in Nazi Germany, although we denied the Holocaust even ever existed, and that the Holocaust was a fabrication to establish the Zionist entity, Israel, and that we had nothing to do with Hitler. That wasn't true. Eyewitness account of terrorism. Walid Shubat continued the shocking interview by sharing his personal story. Shubat says, I remember when I was doing my research, Pastor Hagee, going to Hebron. I saw a bus owned by Jews being stolen by the Palestinians with bars of iron and wire mesh. And I asked myself, why are the Jews not allowed to live amongst us? My friend was pounding a nail in the head of a Jew who was in the bus. You see, in Ramallah Square, in the capital of Palestine, which the Americans helped create, you see thousands and thousands of men in the square of Ramallah carrying body parts of a so-called collaborator. Somebody maybe was sympathizing with Israel. They cut his guts out, cut his heart out, and his kidneys, and put them on a platter. And you see the men and the children carrying the body parts through the streets, shouting, Allah Akbar, in a frenzied fashion, in a euphoric fashion. My country, Pastor Hagee, has become the night of the living dead, literally, not allegorically. What we accuse the Jews of, the blood ritual, we carried out literally. If you think in reverse, what we Muslims accuse America of, they carry out literally. What is next? Nuclear or not? Shabbat says, I see Hezbollah accepting a cessation of hostilities as Condoleezza Rice states it. Yet, as I mentioned before, this is what Islam calls Hudna. The Palestinians will sign peace treaties with Israel. That's not a problem. It is permissible to sign a peace treaty with the enemy because the terrorists have no intention of keeping it. They are regaining strength for the next fight. The United Nations clearly says that they will not disarm Hezbollah, so Hezbollah is going to continue to be rearmed by Iran through Syria. They will have more powerful missiles. It won't be Katyusha rockets next time. It will be laser-guided missiles that will be accurate enough to hit the Israeli Knesset, Knesset, Congress of Israel. Hezbollah is collaborating with Iran. They are acting under the control of the Iranian government. Israel is not at war with Hezbollah. Israel is at war with Iran. Iran is the source of the war. Iran is taking over Iraq. The Shiite government there is very clear. They are pro-Iran. Iran is controlling Syria. So as I see it happening, Iran will take over Iraq. And eventually we'll see Islamic fundamentalism growing all the way to Turkey. Turkey will turn Muslim fundamentalists. This is the second largest army in NATO. When this happens, America will not be able to fight on all these fronts. America will be forced to use its nuclear missiles. Pastor Hagee says, do you see a nuclear war developing in the Middle East because some nations in the region already have nuclear weapons? Iran is trying desperately to obtain nuclear weapons. Do you believe that the president of Iran Ahmadinejad will use nuclear weapons against Israel and America if and when he gets them. Shabbat says, absolutely. This is his goal. He made it very clear. He said it literally. He wants to destroy Israel. And not just Ahmadinejad. Jihad is the problem. Another problem for America is a country like Pakistan and its leader, Musharraf. I know he's an ally of the United States, but he plays on both sides of the fence. If he's ousted, they already have nuclear weapons. So the nuclear crisis in the Middle East is a far greater problem than Americans think. It's not just a war in Iraq. It's a war in Iraq, a war in Iran, a war in Sudan, and politically and potentially a war in Pakistan, and possibly in Turkey. This is a global war that the American people do not see. This is a war that Walid Shabbat, formerly a trained PLO terrorist, sees coming in the Middle East. And all America must see it or pay the consequences for our lack of intellectual honesty to recognize a clear and present danger to the future of the United States of America. Okay, I'm gonna stop there. So this is a really long video. So we're gonna do that. Okay. So thank you for watching.